One day I was sitting at the beach and I had this voice in my head that was just telling me, go and buy paint. And so I went, I bought the paint, and I started in my room at home, like the plastic bag on the bed to not make everything dirty, just like painting without any plan. And when I started painting, like for the first time, and literally like I had diagnosed burnout. Like you can imagine it, you don't feel any joy. It's like you want to stay in bed and just like not do anything. And so like when I picked up this paintbrush for like the first time in a long time, I just felt like this calmness and presence and like this little trace of like joy coming in, which was like something I haven't felt for so long.
Hello, friend. Welcome back to the Awakened Entrepreneur Show. I am Juan Galan, your host, and I am super excited because I have a brand new guest in the show today. Her name is Christine. She is a holistic business coach and precision healing expert. And I actually met her pretty recently through her boyfriend. Her boyfriend does calisthenics at the beach gym. And as you know, I'm also a calisthenics lover. We met each other over there, and then he introduced me to Christine not too long ago. And I really, really loved her approach because not only she's a holistic business coach, just as me, but one of the techniques she uses is art as a form of healing for her clients. So we're going to be talking about holistic business coaching, art, breathwork, and of course, her journey. So hi, Christine. Welcome to the show.
Juan, thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited of what we're going to dive into.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you made the time to join me today. I know we've been talking about this for months already about doing this partnership. And we met up pretty recently at your co-working space. We had a beautiful conversation, a beautiful chat, and I wanted my listeners and viewers to experience this as well. So why don't you start by introducing yourself a little bit and giving people a bit of background of who you are?
Yes, of course. Well, as you already said, I'm a holistic business coach, and I specifically focus on precision healing for entrepreneurs. So this means people come to me if they tried all of the things, all of the tools, and they still feel stuck and they still feel like they're always going back to square one. And then really I come in and use my different modalities that we will go through to go down to the root and find like this root cause that is creating the stuckness, to then clean that out. And so the peace, the cash flow, the health, whatever it is that we desire as entrepreneurs can come in and flow more easily.
That's so beautiful. And I feel so aligned with what you're doing because, as you know, I pivoted my business recently. I was doing more like marketing coaching, and now I am doing more a holistic approach to business. And a lot of the things that we focus on is healing those wounds. And the people come to me as well because, they've tried everything, every strategy, every course, coaching, and nothing really works for them. And that's because they haven't done the inner work. And I know inner work is uncomfortable. A lot of people skip it, but it must be done if you want to have a successful, sustainable, long-term business, right?
Yes, 100%. That's also how I got started in this journey, because when I started my first business 8 years ago, a startup where we help patients with arthritis heal naturally, we had different coaches and we had like different mentors, and of course we also had investors, and they all gave us like these very specific like strategies and looking at the market and like all of these external things, but no one actually focused on our health as founders. No one focused even on like what are our strengths and how can we use them best. So that's really like, I think where for us, a lot of things were way more difficult because we didn't look at these inner wounds. We didn't look at, no one even pointed our direction towards it. And that's why I started in this direction, because as you said, it's like, it's critical. Like I think the foundation of everything, the foundation of like success that actually feels good.
Yeah, foundation of life, really. And I'm wondering, did you ever also experience blocks in your journey in terms of, wounds that you haven't properly healed, or things that you hadn't brought awareness to that also led you into this path of helping other people?
As I mentioned in the startup, I didn't like, no one pointed my direction to my health. So I completely overworked. Honestly, I was there like Monday to Sunday, like whatever time you would text me, I was ready. And after a few months of this, I guess like 1.5 years of doing that, I burned out and like I couldn't get up from my bed. It just felt so exhausted, and as if like this business that I wanted to build is just not in alignment anymore. And so I had to really go and look inside and look at what were all of these beliefs that created me to overwork so much, and start healing these things at the root. For it, not to continue afterwards. And in the beginning, I didn't even know how to go down to the roots. So I healed. I felt good. And that's when I started my coaching business. But there was always like this fear in the back of my mind. What if I go all in again? Like, will I burn out again? And that's really because at this time, I didn't know how do you go down to the roots and really clean that out for good.
Yeah, I love that. And something that I want to point out is that once you start doing the inner work and healing and, and you find purpose and find alignment, it doesn't mean that you're not going to have challenges. It doesn't mean that you're not going to feel stuck at some point or maybe even have some feelings of burnout. But now you have great tools that allow you to navigate those situations, right?
Yes, 100%. I can just give you even an example of today. I mean, I've healed so much about my fear of being seen, of speaking, of going on podcasts like we're here. And then today I was looking at my calendar, I was remembering, we have the podcast today. And I felt like this little fear come up. And it's like now I notice it. I notice how it dysregulates my system. So I can go back and be secure in that moment. I know how to work with that fear. I know how to get down to the root belief, then clean it out and then feel good. So I think this is really what it's about, that we have these tools so that in the moment when something comes up, we can bring the awareness to it. And then we can also clean it out.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned the fear of visibility because this is something that I see very often with most of my clients and most of my community online. And it's really funny because like us people who use social media to get clients to grow brands and businesses, we have to get seen, right? Do you also experience that most of your clients have this visibility wound?
Yes. I think about it, every single one. I don't think I ever met anyone who said like, I'm super good with showing up. No, I think it's very common. And I think it's also very normal. I mean, it's like literally I guess everybody that I work with are really building their businesses from a very aligned place. And it's kind of like our baby. It's like something new that we
Totally.
want to bring out into the world. And of course we want to protect it. And so naturally, this fear of being seen, this fear of like the business itself or like the business itself being seen comes up, and it comes with a lot of wounds from childhood, with a lot of traumas that have to be transformed, that have to be shifted in order for us to feel safe expressing ourselves online.
And do you find that it's like a common thread for everyone that like this visibility wound comes from like a specific common thread? For example, in my experience, I know that I also experienced this fear of being seen online because not necessarily as a child, but as a teenager, I was bullied a lot in high school. So it made me shrink. And now showing up online used to make me feel very vulnerable because I was afraid that as they bullied me back in high school, other people would bully me. So do you find that there's like a common thread between all of your clients, or it's very specific to to their journey?
I think in terms, if you look at experiences, it's very similar. It might not always be like bullying. It could be something even as simple as you were 5 years old and you asked your mom to go to the playground and your mom said, no, we're not going to go now. I mean, already that's like for a child is like a shutdown of like, I'm asking something, I'm expressing myself, and a fear of visibility always has to do with the voice. I'm expressing something that I want and I'm shut down by the people that I love. So already like small things like this can create this fear of visibility. And then it's really about going deeper into the beliefs that we form about ourselves in terms of being seen. And there it really depends. It really depends on the client as well, what kind of beliefs are playing out.
Yeah. That's beautiful what you said. And it really speaks to me because up to very recently, I hadn't really uncovered one of my deepest wounds, which was the wound of betrayal, actually. And I had from my mother, and I have a beautiful relationship with my mother. And I would have never thought that this fear of visibility stems back to this wound of betrayal. So, doing my inner work, of course, I found out I had this like kind of vision where I saw myself as a little boy crying in school and I didn't really know why. And so I asked my mom, like, Mom, what happened in school? Like, was it the first day of school that I just saw myself crying? And I had totally forgotten about that memory. Obviously, my subconscious mind had completely blocked it to protect me. And she was like, actually, it was not in school. It was the first day of kindergarten. So I was maybe around 3 to 4 years old. And I was super excited on the first day, and I was walking with her on the way there, and I fell down, and I hit myself, and I started crying, and I didn't want to go anymore. And of course, my mom was like, you know, I guess I'm sure she comforted me, but then she was like, well, you still have to go, right? And she left me in kindergarten the first day crying, and I felt betrayed, and probably I felt abandoned and rejected at the same time. And it's crazy that all these wounds have manifested in my adult life, and until literally, I'm not lying to you, until like a month ago, I wasn't even aware of that wound. So it's really good to do that inner work to find things that you probably would never without it, right?
Maybe if I can make a comment to that, because like going even deeper, the thing with the subconscious mind is, and the beliefs in the subconscious, yes, they are formed in our childhood, but they can go way beyond that. So they go back into ancestral up to 7 generations, and they also come from past lives. So for example, if I look at my fear of visibility, I know that in one of my past lives, I was like a woman who was healing. And if you remember, like women healing, like 400, 500 years ago, they were burned as witches. So literally I saw myself like burning on the stake. And that's of course creates a lot of beliefs in your body of how it's very not safe to be seen and show your craft, because you're killed literally. So it's like, it's really can go really, really deep into like places where you wouldn't even like think about, or like in your case, I mean, the kindergarten, what does this have to do with you now creating a business? But it's like in our body, it's all related.
Wow, that's fascinating what you just mentioned. And is this kind of like ancestral healing part of the work you do with your clients as well?
Yes. I mean, it's not so much. That's what I did in the beginning when I started really going back to all of this. But what I really focus on now is finding these root beliefs that are in your body right now. It doesn't matter so much if this root belief came from your childhood, or it came from a past life, or it came from an ancestral life, or wherever it came from. As long as we find this root belief and we change it, it really doesn't matter where it came from. So that's what I focus on now, because it's a lot more effective and fast.
Right. So I'm curious, and I would love to know, and I'm sure that people listening or watching on YouTube would love to know as well, how can we really shed light on these either past life wounds or ancestral wounds that we're carrying right now? Because with our own wounds, we have all these tools that, like, for example, with me, I was doing a therapy, and that's how this memory came back to life. But obviously, when it comes to other past lives or ancestral wounds, are there specific techniques that you recommend for people that really want to dive into that?
Yes. So what I would first recommend, because of course, as you know, this is deep work, and that's always what I do as like a starting point with my clients, is to get them back to the love and light that they are. Because I believe inside of us, we're all love and light. That's how we are. That's how we're born. That's how we die. And even the worst person in the world has this core inside. It's just like in our life, we collect all of these experiences and traumas. And I like to think of them as like curtains that we put up in front of this light, and that are kind of like dimming our light. So the first part is really connecting to the love and light that you are, and use that as a foundation, so that when you go deep and you go into one of these beliefs, you don't get lost in a belief like this. Because for example, when I started this work, one of the most traumatic beliefs I found for myself was I'm not good enough. And the first time I wrote it down on a paper, I looked at it and I was crying the entire day, because I believe this is who I am. And we don't want to go down that route of believing this is who we are. No, we literally come back with love and light. Everything else that there is, fear, beliefs, whatever it is, it's just a layer that we have collected that we can clean up. And then after that, in my experience, it's really important to work from a regulated nervous system, because when your system is regulated, it's a lot easier to not get lost in all of these layers, not get lost, go down the tracks, and also go down and really find these beliefs. And then in terms of like beliefs, there is a technique where you can actually test for subconscious beliefs. I have a masterclass that will be coming out, a free masterclass that will be coming out next week. So at time of when this podcast goes live, it will already be out.
Nice.
Where there is the technique of how you can actually with your body test if a subconscious belief is present. Because often with my clients, I notice I intuitively get this is a belief that's blocking them. They're like, no. And then we test it, and their subconscious says, yes, this is very much present here. And then in terms now to your question, to answer how can we actually change it? there it's really the technique I use with my clients is called theta healing. Literally what I do, I go to the creator energy and tell the creator to change the specific belief within my client's subconscious mind. And it takes like 2-3 minutes, and then a belief is changed, and with it everything else that came after it. So that's the most effective method I found that I use with my clients. Of course, there's other techniques which I don't use anymore because this is just too fast and too easy to not use it.
Yeah. No, I guess, and it's good to focus just on one. Otherwise, it could be overwhelming for them and for you. Love the masterclass that you're doing, and please, when it's done, when it's ready, share the link with us, and I'll put it in the show notes, so that anyone listening that's interested in learning more about what are their subconscious belief and where they're coming from, that would be super helpful for them. And something that you mentioned as well is like being aware really of where in your body is this coming from, right? I feel that we're so on like autopilot mode every single day that we're like lose this connection with our body and with our bodies, and our bodies are like such powerful instruments that have been created to help us to create as well, like, and to heal, and to like, we underestimate the power of our bodies, and we also shame our bodies a lot, but it's a completely different story. Love that you mentioned as well about nervous system regulation, which we're going to be talking about in a minute. But now I want to talk a little bit about one of the things I found fascinating about your work, which is healing with art. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. So I actually got into art therapy or therapeutic art when I was burnt out. One day I was sitting at the beach and I had this voice in my head that was just telling me, go and buy paint. And so I bought the paint, and I started in my room at home, like the plastic bag on the bed to not make everything dirty, just like painting without any plan. And when I started painting, like for the first time, and literally like I was like I had diagnosed burnout. Like you can imagine it, you don't feel any joy. It's like you want to
Yeah.
stay in bed and just like not do anything. And so like when I picked up this paintbrush for like the first time in a long time, I just felt like this calmness and presence and like this little trace of like joy coming in, which was like something I haven't felt for so long. And so I started painting every day. And I always like to say I painted myself out of burnout, because with all of the painting and like with moving all of the emotions and like everything that I wasn't listening to, I really could like transform and like release what was happening. And that's also why I use it now with my clients, because art is, or the language of the subconscious mind is imagery, is images,
Right.
it's art. So when we use art, when we look at art, when we paint, when we use that, we have a direct connection, a direct portal to our subconscious mind. So we
Right.
can use it to, like, for example, as you just mentioned, like our body is always communicating with us. If there's a feeling, a sensation in your body, or just a little pain, you can feel into it. And sometimes it's really hard to put words to it. It's just like, it's like a feeling, but it's like, how do I put it into words? Then you can use to draw it out. And like this drawing is already the first step to then translating it, so that you can then put words to it, and that you then can put beliefs to it. And oftentimes just the drawing itself, if you look at it afterwards, it gives you so much information of what's going on inside, if it's beliefs or stuck emotions or whatever it is that you have to work through, that you can all use that as a starting point for all of the transformations to come afterwards.
That's so interesting, and I'm curious. So this comes out more in the form of abstract art, I guess, right? They're not like drawing anything in particular, just letting their subconscious mind guide them, and it comes out very abstract, right?
Exactly. So it's not how we usually imagine art, like we need to have the beautiful Picasso painting or like the beautiful painting. No, it's literally like you could do this with closed eyes. The result doesn't matter at all. It's all about the process, because in the process, you move out all of the things, all of the emotions, the beliefs, whatever it is, and then you can have a look after it. If you go onto it with like your logical mind of like, I want to create something nice and perfect and all of that, you're virtually like you're cutting off this natural process of like expressing your subconscious.
And is it up to them to interpret it, or you also do it as their coach? You help them like see what that could mean.
Well, I never interpret any paintings or any artworks. What I do is I guide my clients through. So I ask intentional questions. Maybe there's something that stands out to me. Then I ask them, what does this mean? But in the end, it's their subconscious. Only they can make sense of it. So I just guide them through, like, maybe look at this, or like, what did this mean? And maybe it didn't mean nothing. Or maybe it meant something and they didn't even see it.
Right. There's so many questions coming up in my mind right now. What type of material do you use for painting? Is it watercolor, or do you use anything in particular? And do the colors have any particular meaning in what they're trying to express?
So of course, you can use a lot of different modalities. What I usually use with my clients, because it's easier, and it's like, for me, it's not so much about what material you use, rather that you use it more or less like intuitively. And for that reason, I use a lot of like colored pencils, felt tips, crayons, like things that people might have at home, or if not, they can really easily buy it. And it's not a learning curve with watercolor. It can be quite a learning curve to see how do I. And it's not about that. We don't want to learn how to paint. We want to learn how to express our subconscious.
Right.
And then in terms of the colors, it really depends. So, for example, if you have no colors at home and you just have a pencil, you could already start just expressing. Already that will do something. You will see maybe something in the forms and shapes. But then, of course, it's really helpful to add colors. And again, you make up the meaning of the colors. And it can be something very specific and very important, or it can be just like, okay, maybe I just drawn to this color, and it doesn't have to have any meaning.
Right. And the process itself, I guess they have to be in a calm, relaxing space. Do you play like specific music to them while you guide them through, like with the questions that you ask them? Can you share a bit about that as well?
Yes. So what I always do beforehand is meditation or breathwork, visualization, something to get them into a calm state of mind, as you mentioned. And then they paint, they draw. Often I actually don't play any music, because I feel like it can be distracting, and we don't want to start listening to the music. We want to start to listen what's going on inside, so that we can express that. And then afterwards is like really the questioning and seeing what can we make out of this? How can we translate this into action?
It's so interesting. And I'm sure that the people listening are going to be fascinated by this approach, because honestly, you're the first person I hear having this approach to healing through art, but I think it's beautiful. I've heard about healing through music, and I think we talked about that when we had this chat a few weeks ago. It's like, I come from a music background, and I would love to at some point incorporate music into my coaching. But for now, like one step at a time. I know now you mentioned also breath work, and I wanted to ask, what role does the nervous system play in building a successful business?
I think it's really everything. So if we are in a nervous system state that's dysregulated, or like in this fight or flight state that we often now hear about and see about,
which most people are in all the time, right?
Exactly. That's like, unfortunately, that's the baseline for a lot of people. Now, looking at why this makes it a lot more difficult is really, you can understand this really easily when you understand the brain. So you can imagine the brain has basically, there's three parts to our brain. There's the first one, the inner one, which is the reptilian brain. This is really the brain of like survival, or fight or flight, of like these reptilian features that we need to survive. Then around that, we have the limbic brain, which is the brain that's there for memory and emotion. And only then comes our human brain, the neocortex. And the neocortex is where our logical thinking happens, where we make the clear decisions, where we can analytically look at situations. Now, when our nervous system is dysregulated, there is less blood flow to the neocortex. So there's less blood flow to the to the part of our brain that is needed for logical thinking, up to the point that there's only enough blood flow so it survives, it doesn't die, but we can't use it anymore. This means we're living in the reptilian, which is fight or flight survival, in the limbic brain, which is emotions and memories, like a 5-year-old child. And we're living with these two brains. And that's how we're trying to run our business, from like this emotions, memories, and like survival. And then basically all of the logical thinking, decision making, analytical is not a part that we access. So that's why it's really important to regulate our nervous system so that we can use the full functionality of our brain, tap into the analytical thinking, make better decisions, have better focus. And of course, it also takes us way less energy, because being in fight or flight is exhausting for our body. This is what led me to burnout, being in this fight or flight state all of the time. So I think this like cannot be overstated enough. Regulated nervous system is crucial.
Yeah, no, 100%. And one of the best ways to regulate it is through breath work, right? Do you have any specific breath work technique that you share with your clients? Your favorite one, for example?
Well, I'm trained in the Wim Hof method, which is this guy that goes into the ice bath. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I do with my clients in a deeper, longer session to like once really clean out like all of these layers, all of these stuck layers of like emotions and things we don't need. In terms of just like simple breathing, I think everybody of us can just do like simple breath exercises, and I would recommend that. Like just daily sit down. I mean, the most simplest form is just breathe in through the nose and have a longer breath out. And then, of course, if you're experienced a little bit in breathwork, you've done a guided breathwork session before, you can start with doing a few hyperventilations, so breathing through the mouth, then maybe having a break, and then doing that, just like a minute, have a little break, do another minute, like just like something simple for you yourself at home in the morning to regulate down a little bit.
Yeah, no, I'm so fascinated with breath work, and I've started getting into it more recently. And I've been doing it mostly in the mornings, also sometimes before going to sleep. I did a shamanic breath work session the other day, and it was intense. It was intense. Like, and the facilitator was saying, like, it could be parts where you feel uncomfortable, like you could feel like a lot of tension in your jaw. And at some point, I felt like I couldn't open, like, because you were breathing everything in through the mouth and exhaling through the mouth. And at some point, I felt like my jaw was so tense that you get to feel a bit of fear at some point, because it's like lose a bit of control over your body. But then the sensations that I felt on my body were like, wow, like I felt so light and almost like my body was lifting up. It was incredible. I loved it. And something else that I discovered recently is that I've been studying the Bible from a metaphysical standpoint, and Genesis, which is the first book, the book of creation, talks about how our breath, how conscious breath is a connection to the divine, our connection to God. And most people live their lives breathing unconsciously. So once you start getting into this conscious breathing state, you can tap into these like higher realms of consciousness and divine inspiration and guidance. So I find it super fascinating. That's how really God created the universe, with his breath. Like that was the first thing, right? So I find it super interesting.
Maybe just to add to the first part of what you said, I think it's so common, like that. I mean, everything's tingling, everything might be tense. I mean, people might be crying or screaming. And I mean, if you like look just at the word breath work, it's work. Like literally, it says in the word. It's like not something that is like, okay, we just relax and we just do a meditation. That's why I think like it's something that you can do in the morning, but like very like a minute, like 2 minutes, like something super simple. And then what you said afterwards with the connection to the divine, to God, however people wanna call it. I think really it's like the way I see it, like this love and light that we are inside, the breath is like the direct portal to that. And this love and light is just a reflection. It's a reflection of the creator, of like this divine energy of God. And that's where, when we connect to ourselves, that's how we connect to that space. And the breath, I mean, direct portal.
Beautiful. And actually, I love that you mentioned that, because it takes me to what I wanted to ask you next. I mean, it's clear that you're a spiritual person, right? What does God or source or higher self mean to you?
Well, I like to call it the creator. It's really hard for me to put into words. I connect to the creator every day so much during the day, specifically through the theta healing sessions I do, where I literally go up to the creator and ask to change a belief in another person's body. And when I go up there, it's just like this feeling of like divine bliss, love, calm, presence, as if it's like the way it should be, like the way how every single moment of life should be, without any judgment or good or bad. And like, no matter if I, like, in quotation marks, fuck up or do something wrong, like the creator is always there. It doesn't matter. I'm always loved. I always have like the support, like this guidance, the support. And it's like, just for me, like coming back to that feeling and that connection, because there was a long time in my life where I lost it, completely lost it.
Most
It's
people.
just, Yeah, most people, exactly. It's just like, I feel like since then, life is flowing more easily. And like, whatever challenge there is, I can go to the creator and be like, please help me.
When you say you connect to the creator, is it through some sort of meditation or just being still and quiet? How do you usually connect to this higher power?
Yes, so I use the theta healing technique, which is a specific meditation technique where you go into the theta brainwave, and then literally you imagine yourself going out of your crown and you go up like through the entire universe. You go through so many layers. You go outside of the universe through the layers and everything that there is before the creator comes, and then you go into that space. So that's basically how I connect and how I found the most connection.
That's amazing. I've never heard about like that technique because I know people meditate, like Christians pray, for example. I do a bit of everything, but I also feel that there's not just one way to get to the creator or to God or to
Yes.
or to a higher power. It's more like a personal thing. But yeah, I also wanted to ask you, is this spiritual practice something that you encourage your clients to do as well, or this is something more that you do to help them in their journey?
I think it's more something that I use to help them in their journey, but something that happens naturally in the process. Because then once they see that going up to the creator or like connecting to the creator in whatever form or shape that's for you, helps to do such amazing things of like just changing a belief or like just changing a trauma and like having it really effective and fast, and also feeling like the calmness and presence that comes from it, naturally then come up questions, and naturally like this connection that I help them to get back to their love and light, they naturally like tend to go, okay, there is more behind that. There is like a divine energy. So naturally in our work, usually they start, if they haven't already, they start to connect more.
You mentioned that for some time in your life, you lost this connection. What was the one thing that brought you back to this creator energy?
The one thing, that's a very good question. I mean, I think it was more like like a journey, I think, because for like first it was like just like this feeling of something's missing, and I couldn't
Yeah.
explain what is it, what is this missing. And then of course I went on to the search, like reading the books, like talking to people, like how you would usually like start. That's how I start, like investigate, let's see.
Yeah.
And
We
then
all go
I
through that journey, the like
okay,
rabbit hole.
and then I felt like really soon I understood, okay, it's like this connection to source, to the creator, to God that's missing. But I kind of understood it on an intellectual level. And I was like, okay, now, like how do I get there? Like how do I connect? And so I started like, I started experimenting like with praying and like maybe just sitting in meditation. And I felt like always like I connected to myself, but I never felt like, am I connected or not? Does he hear me or not? You know, all of these things. And then really with theta healing, like going up there, like it's like a feeling, like I just know it's like there is no other way. It's just like this. So I think this was like what shifted for me after I like went on the journey.
Right. And have you ever felt or been judged for having this belief by people around you, like family, friends, or even clients?
Clients never, because they're usually very aligned. And then in terms of like, I mean, as I live here in Barcelona, people are pretty open, so here
Yeah.
never. But when I go back to Germany, I wouldn't say I hide, but I say I be more careful what I talk about and how I share. For example, with my family, there is like a sensation that there is something more, but I probably wouldn't go as deep. And then with some friends, so it really depends on the person. And I think from being, I guess, like understanding where someone is and like sharing what I think they can take, what they can connect with. So far, I haven't had this feeling of like someone's judging me.
Yeah, it's about being selective with who you share
Exactly.
your beliefs and knowing how they're going to react. I want to point something you mentioned before is like when you were trying to get back this connection to the creator, to source, you said like at first I was praying and meditating, but I felt like I was just connecting with myself. And I wanted to ask you, because as I said before, I'm studying metaphysics, and in metaphysics, yourself, like your inner self, is the connection to God, to source. What do you think about this?
Completely agree with it. Like 100%. I think like, I mean, I think there's like the saying, like how it is inside, so or how it is outside, so it is inside, or like how it is
Yeah.
on the top and it's the same at the bottom. I think it's all mirrored.
Mm,
I think I was just probably like in this time, maybe disconnected from the part of myself inside of myself that felt this connection. Or, I mean, either this or my mind was coming in too much. Because like, if I think back now, there were moments where I felt like a different energy, a different power, like something outside of myself, but something that I couldn't create by myself. But then my mind came in afterwards and was like, was this really God or was it not? And then I kind of like destroyed that connection.
The ego, right?
The ego, yes.
In metaphysics, that's all there is the ego and spirit. Like our natural essence is spirit, which is love, light, but then we're living an illusion of separation through the ego. And most people live their life through the ego, which is what causes fears, which is what causes traumas, pain, frustrations, comparisons, etc. So yeah, that's super fascinating. When I'll go back to your journey though. So you said that with your first startup, you experienced burnout. Has there been any other parts or any other moments in your journey where you've had like very low moments and thought about quitting again this beautiful business that you've been building?
Yes, I think I've been on this journey three years now, and definitely the first two, probably even 2.5 years. These thoughts of like quitting, and then like you start and you put out a workshop, and one person comes, and then you're trying to get like another one-on-one client, no one signs up, and you have all of these things. And
Oh my
in the
God,
beginning,
tell me about it.
exactly, the journey of an entrepreneur, no? And in the beginning, I made all of these things about myself. So when no one signed up, like I lost myself in this ego thinking that you just
I suck.
described so nicely. Like literally, like okay, they don't come because my services are not good enough, or like the imposter syndrome coming in, or whatever it is. I mean, there's lots of many loops that we can go down. And yes, I definitely lost myself at some points in these loops, and had thoughts of like, okay, maybe it's just not worth it. Maybe I just quit. But there was always like this still voice inside of me that was like, okay, we keep going no matter what happens. And since really going like into like using theta healing more and really learning how to go into the subconscious and precisely changing a belief, I feel like even now when a fear comes up or when a thought comes up, I don't get lost. I don't get lost in the ego. I connect to the love and light that I am. I go down this route to find what the belief is, to change it, and then it's gone for good. So since, I guess, like half a year, maybe 4 or 5 months, I haven't had this thought anymore, because I just know whatever comes up, I can handle it.
Yeah. And it's what we talked about at the beginning, is that your fears or your wounds are still going to show up. You just now have a better set of tools to face them. And you learn how to become aware and detach and become the observer, not the victim, right? Which I think is what everyone needs to understand, is that, like you just learn how to separate, not to just become numb or forget about it. So I love that you mentioned that. And I can relate with you so much also, because I pivoted my business, as I said. Like I started doing marketing coaching, Instagram marketing coaching. Now I'm doing more like holistic approach to business coaching. And of course, this pivot, it's a transition. It's a huge change, especially with an audience that I had already built around that first topic. So this transition has been very challenging, and it's also brought a lot of past fears and wounds, the one that I just shared with you before, that I had it completely blocked in my mind. And it's been challenging, but there's no way that I'm like quitting, or there's no way that I'm going back to a 9 to 5. It's like I just have to keep going. And now I have my set of tools. So yes, there's days when I feel a little bit down, and I let myself feel down as well. I feel that letting yourself feel these emotions is healthy. Like you can't block them, otherwise they're just going to stay there, and they're going to manifest maybe through like physical pain as well. So I let myself feel these emotions, but also again use my tools and become aware, okay, that's not me. Again, it's an illusion. I'm love and light. I'm spirit. I'm loved by God, and I'm gonna keep going. So yeah, that's pretty much something that really resonated with me. I have a few more questions before we go, because time is almost up, but I know we could stay here for hours talking about all of this. If an entrepreneur is listening to this right now and feels blocked or burnt out, what's one practice you would recommend they start with?
I think the foundation is connecting back to the love and light that they are, because everything else, I believe everything else then comes after that. And the best practice I found is go to a mirror, look yourself in the eyes, and literally look yourself in the eyes. Because your eyes are portals to your soul.
Yes.
So if you look yourself in the eyes and you just stay there 2 minutes, 5 minutes, it might be uncomfortable. There might come up a lot of thoughts. There might even come up, oh my God, like how does my face look, whatever, my hair, but stay with that.
My pimple.
Exactly. I mean, all of the thoughts that the ego is then trying to come in to be like, we're not going to connect, but stay with that and connect to that essence that lives behind your eyes, that soul and that love and that light. And when you find that, and even if it's just like this tiny moment, this 1 second, this millisecond, remember how it feels. And then I would go and paint that, draw that, even if it's just a simple pencil drawing, something so that you have a physical proof of, I found it, I connected to this is who I am at the inner part, where like nothing else, like everything else is not me. This is who I really am. And have this as a physical reminder somewhere to then keep going and start cleaning out all of this stuff that we have accumulated over time.
That's beautiful. I'm actually gonna go try that technique after we finish recording this, because like looking at yourself for a long time is uncomfortable, and also looking at other people for a long time, like deep in the eyes, it becomes uncomfortable. I guess it makes you very vulnerable, right? So this show is called The Awakened Entrepreneur, and I wanted to ask you, what does being an awakened entrepreneur mean to you?
Beautiful question. I really think for me, it's living in truth. It's living in this truth that we are all love and light, and guiding my business from this place, guiding my clients from that place, and always becoming better to staying more in that place, to losing myself less in all of this ego talk and all of these layers that are around there. And just like following that love and light and the creator, the divine energy that is behind that, and just listening to that like inner call.
Beautiful. And doing the inner work, of course, right?
Of course, yes. I mean, that's part of it all.
As you can now get to the love and light properly. Christine, thank you so much for this beautiful chat. Thank you for taking the time today to join us. Before we go, where can people find you? I'm going to be sharing for sure the link to your masterclass. So whenever it's ready, send it over and I'll share it in the show notes and the description of in the video on YouTube. But where can people find more about you, and where can people connect with you?
Yes, I think, well, there's 3 places. Just on Instagram, put in my name, Christine Peine, with the dash, not the dash, but the one that's the underlying score.
Mm-hmm.
Then on my LinkedIn is also my name with a minus in between, or just go directly to my website, also christinepeine.com. And there is also all of the information. There's also all of the socials. And then in addition, I also have a weekly newsletter, The Shift, which also really helps us to go deeper, to find to show this way of how we can find these blocks that are keeping us stuck really at the root. So there every week I also share it might be a little practice, it might be a perspective shift, something that helps us do this inner work and come back to the love and light that we are.
That I'm gonna subscribe for sure, and I'm gonna make sure to share all those links so that people can connect with you, can check your work out, and do your masterclass. And thank you so much again for your time. It was amazing. And thank you guys for all of you who stayed until the end. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to review it on your favorite podcast platform. If you think this is worth a 5-star, which I think it was worth 5 stars, please leave 5 stars, leave a comment on YouTube telling us what was your biggest breakthrough after listening to this show. And I will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.